Everyone sees the game. The lights, the moments, the headlines, that's the part they show you. But that's not the whole story. Because behind every win, there's something else. Pressure, decisions, sacrifice, things you don't hear about, things you're not supposed to see. I started noticing it. The gaps, the questions no one was asking, the stories no one was telling. Not because they weren't there, but because no one was looking. So I did. I stopped chasing just the highlights, and I started chasing the truth. The moments in between, the voices underneath, the stories behind the sport. Because what's real isn't always what's visible. We don't want you to hear, we want you to listen. Season 2, episode 10, the big 1-0 of the Behind the Sports Show. My name is Giovanna Scroggins. I am your host, and this episode is gonna be good. I always say that, but I wouldn't let y'all down. I wouldn't lie about it. I've sat down with this amazing woman personally before this episode came out and just listened to her knowledge, her advice, her stories. And as a Dallas girl, she's not born in Dallas, but she was born down the road and has been in Dallas and has really, truly watched some great evolution of some good old Dallas Cowboy football. And she also has seen and is a part of the cheerleader side as well. So this is a great episode. And speaking of the Cowboys, I have to shout out one of my favorite players. And yes, it's the kicker, Brandon Aubrey, Dallas Cowboys All-Pro kicker. As of yesterday, agreed to a 4-year, $28 million contract extension, making him the highest paid kicker in NFL history. We knew this was coming because Brandon Aubrey, I'm drafting him on my fantasy team every single year because he'll get 20 points in a single game, better than some of the other players and receivers and running backs that you might have on your team. But had to shout that out because we talked a little bit about kickers, one of Christie's story, and I was like, I have to mention that in my intro. So congratulations, Brandon. Thank you for being a consistent Cowboys player. We appreciate your efforts and we appreciate your talent, and can't wait to see him do amazing things in this next season. Draft is coming up. We talk a little bit about that in the episode as well. So make sure you stay tuned all the way to the very end because Christie gives her takes on what the Cowboys may do in this draft. So without further ado, I give you season 2, episode 10 of BTS. All right, guys, welcome back into yet another episode of BTS. I believe we're in episode 10 of season 2, and it has been a whirlwind, and I am so excited for this lady right next to me to share her story. I want to welcome in Christie Scales. She is the sideline reporter for the Dallas Cowboys, and I am so excited to talk to her about her story. Christie, how are you?
I'm well, and I'm excited too because now I'm in the top 10, So just stop right now, and then I can say I'm top 10.
There
Yeah,
you
that
go.
sounds good.
There you go. We had, and I feel like 10 is a good one because we're in double digits.
Mhm.
And I'm telling y'all better buckle up those seatbelts because I've listened to her story before and it is so cool. So let's start there. Let's start from the very beginning.
Okay.
You were telling me offline about kind of how you came into sports in a very untraditional way. So talk to me about where you started and then kind of how that evolved into you working for the sports industry and working for the Cowboys ultimately.
Yeah, so the 2026 season, this is my 36th season overall with the Dallas Cowboys radio network and my 28th as the sideline reporter. My first 8 years, I was the producer. So the behind the scenes person on game day, I was up in the booth producing for Brad Sham, of course, the legendary play-by-play voice of the Dallas Cowboys. And back then it was Dale Hansen, who most people know from Channel 8 in Dallas. But of course, for many years, he was the analyst for Cowboys Radio. And now it's been Babe Laufenberg for the past 27 years. But my career in sports broadcasting is a happy accident. If I'd have known that I was going into sports broadcasting I had the sports part because I was a tomboy and grew up a huge sports fan, especially Cowboys. I grew up in Dallas, at least since fifth grade. I'm originally from Galveston, Texas. But if I'd have known that you could work in sports or especially be a sports broadcaster or a journalist, I promise you, I would have taken a broadcasting class or a journalism class. I was going to teach school and had just finished my student teaching at Lake Highlands High School, which is Richardson School District in far northeast Dallas. And I was applying for teaching jobs after graduating from Texas A&M. And back then, they didn't hire new teachers until August because school didn't start till after Labor Day. This is how long ago it was, 1989, but don't add that up. I think it's 39. Well, no, don't add it up. I'm 39 years old, but
There you
this
go.
was over 40 years ago. Math, it's fuzzy math.
Yeah, girl math, girl math.
Yeah, girl math. And I applied for a part-time summer job at a radio station. And that radio station was KVIL, a music station led by the morning DJ and program director Ron Chapman, who is a legend in radio. But it was a music station, more specifically the Carpool Mom station. And by that I mean it played at the time Hall & Oates, Phil Collins, kind of oldie, soft rock kind of thing. And I got a job as a promotions assistant because that would be a fun way to pass the summer and get a few hours, and you could work on weekends and have the week available to do interviews. A promotions assistant is the lowest rung on the ladder, okay? Those are the kids who go out and like hand out the bumper stickers or hang the banners for the radio station at the concerts. And little did I know that when I got this interview that Ron had me pegged to become a producer for the afternoon show. And so I thought I was going in for a summer job, and it was went back in on a Friday for a second interview. And the promotions director, Tricia, said, well, we can start you on Monday, and it wouldn't be full time for a couple months, but I can promise at least 30 hours a week, and we'll see where it goes from there. And I'm like, you mean like a job starting Monday? And so I thought it would go for several weeks, and it has been 38 years. So I'm at the radio station. Now I'm producing the afternoon show, the music show. I'm still the promotions assistant and have to do all that work. And in 1990, so a year later, Ron Chapman and KVIL Radio sign a contract with this new sports owner from Arkansas who had come into the Dallas market the year earlier, 1989, and bought the Cowboys. And suddenly this music station is now the flagship station of the Dallas Cowboys radio network. And I, as a person who in Lake Highlands grew up 2 blocks away from the Dallas Cowboys old practice facility, way before the Star, way before Valley Ranch and Irving, hanging out in the parking lot and getting autographs from Tom Landry and Roger Staubach and Tony Dorsett and Cliff and Charlie, Drew Pearson, Bob Brunig, all those guys.
So
now I'm suddenly the sports producer. And that's because they wouldn't hire anybody else, to like that knew what they were doing, that they would have another salary. So by default, I became the sports producer, in addition to producing the afternoon show and still having to be a promotions assistant. So I did that for 8 years. We also, on Monday night and Tuesday night and Wednesday night on this music station, KVIL, Monday night was a Jerry Jones show, an hour-long show at a local restaurant, and fans could come or people could obviously listen and call in. Tuesday night was current players, and then Wednesday night would be a former player. And so it was, about a 14-hour day on Sundays, your 1-hour show on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Those 1-hour shows took about 5 or 6 hours each work time, and then all the preparation during the week. And after 8 years of producing, I did some on air in terms of pregame interviews with players and maybe even a coach. And then, of course, I was out at Valley Ranch every day, getting sound and stuff and producing all of the things for the game day broadcast. So I knew all the coaches, I knew the players. And so it was a natural to slide into becoming the sideline reporter. So that's a very long answer to your very simple question. But it goes, I say all the time that actually I'm quoting another person from KVIL Radio, Susie Humphreys, who was Ron's cohort in the morning. But it is, life is what happens when you're making other plans. So I'm not qualified for my job. It never occurred to me while hanging out in the parking lot and peeking over, standing on top of the dumpster next to the practice field and trying to watch the end of practice after junior high classes and high school classes. It never occurred to me that I could work in sports. But, dream job for sure. But it wasn't my dream back then because I didn't even know it was possible.
Right. And sometimes, like, God has a weird way of
Yeah,
kind of directing our path. And it seems like you were just at the right place at the right time, and you were
totally.
more than capable doing all the things that you were doing because you were kind of already groomed, kind of, like your bosses had you pegged for those type of roles. Like you
Mhm.
were groomed in a sense to take over that role, which is so
Exactly.
cool. And now you've been a part of a Cowboys organization and you've seen so much history, which I think is the coolest part about what you've done so far, because being in one place at one time for a good chunk of the evolution of the Cowboys, if you will,
Right.
is really cool. I want to touch on the cheerleaders real quick
Sure.
because
Oh, yeah, that's,
you,
you talk about God having a, you know, plan for our lives, or just being, I would say, being open to his plan and the
yeah,
opportunities that he lays in front of you. But my working with the cheerleaders as a tomboy, now my older sister, I have one sister, Carrie, she's 2 years older. She was a cheerleader in high school. I was not. I have no graceful bone in my body and can't tell you any dance moves other than like pirouette. But yeah, me working with the cheerleaders, as I've told you before, is evidence that God has a sense of humor. And my family, actually, my college roommate Karen, I think I've been a judge for auditions for 25 years now, and I think the first 10 years, well, the first several years before the show was on CMT, the CMT
mhm.
Making the Team, Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, I think she still didn't believe that I was actually a judge. That's how far-fetched
She's
it
like,
is.
"There's no way out of all my roommate was
Yeah,
the judge."
the last person who would be a judge.
Well, I think it's just so cool because I mean, obviously, like you would think you're the last person, but because of your work, you got to be a part of another like staple of the Cowboys organization. Talk to me about your judging years and what exactly you did for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and what you kind of still do now for them. Because you're not only were you on the Making the Team show, but you've also, I think you were like in the
I'm
first
on
season,
Netflix, the
yeah,
Netflix
on the
show,
Netflix
yeah.
documentary as well.
Yeah, so I'm the lady on the bus. So if you've seen the Netflix show,
Aren't
the
you
first
giving a
few
tour or
seasons.
something? Isn't that what you're doing?
Well, the way that I got to ride the bus is the same way that I got to be a judge all those years ago. So my first season with Dallas Cowboys was 19 Cowboys Radio Network, and we're still full-time employees at KVIL Radio, but at Valley Ranch doing, it's kind of like having two jobs in one. Anyway, Kelly Finglass, the director of the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, and then of course Judy Trammell is the longtime choreographer. But Kelly's first year as director, she of course was a former cheerleader and assistant director, but it was 91. So our time together kind of coincided, coming in together, and we're about the same. Well, she's a few years older than me, but don't tell her. Anyway, but we've been there a long time. And one part of the process for Dallas Cowboys cheerleader auditions is the written test. And so I'd say from about the mid to late 90s, the written, Kelly would come to me and say, could you update these questions for the test? It was 100 questions, multiple choice. And I'd say about 20, 25 questions were Cowboys or NFL related. And, like some of them were very easy. Who is the owner, general manager, president of the Dallas Cowboys? Who is the head coach? who was our first round draft pick this year. They weren't to trip anybody up. It was just stay current with the team for the obvious things. The rest of the test would be like current events. There were also dance questions. I did not write those and I would fail it. But anyway, so I would update that every year. And back then we were going through some head coaches. So there was a lot of changes each year. So you kind of had to keep up, even for the cheerleaders. The reason why they would do that and why we also have part of the process is judging, is having panel interview where the girls would come in, they'd come in 2 or 3 at a time and sit down and we would ask them questions. These young women become the brand ambassadors of the Dallas Cowboys, not just the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, but representing our team, our brand, and the entire community. You could even say the state of Texas. And when they do international things like USO tours or, really represent, they're America's sweethearts, right? So we want to make sure not only that they're conversant, but, good people and good ambassadors for us. And they need to know some about the team because they're interacting, whether it's with veterans on the military base or the VA hospital, with, fans at a different corporate events or at games or youth camps, that kind of thing. People are going to ask them about the team. And so we just want them to, have some talking points. So Kelly would come up to me, and I'd been judging for, 20 years at this point. Well, even before that. Christie, can you come into the locker room after the game and just kind of say what happened so that they'll know, talking points during the week if anybody comes up and says anything? And I'm like, well, Kelly, I'd be happy to do that. But right after the game, I'm in the Cowboys players locker room. That's a whole different story. But anyway, I'm in the Cowboys players locker room getting interviews and stuff. She's like, oh, that's right. You got your own job to do. I'm sorry. Well, the next year rolled around. She'd forget. She'd like, Christie, I've got this idea. Why don't you come in the locker room and update it? So after several years of this, she's like, why don't you ride the bus to and from the game with us? And on the way, you can tell us, what to expect and kind of the storylines. And then on the way home, what happened. So we'll have the talking points. Giovanna, I thought to myself, even though when you work media or even cheerleaders, you don't leave until about maybe an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, if you're lucky after the game.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of traffic. And so even if it's 2 hours, you're still kind of sometimes stuck in traffic. And the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders ride a bus to and from the game, and they have something that the rest of us don't. And that is a police escort.
Yep.
Right through the traffic. And I thought to myself, I think I would like to ride this bus. So I'm like, Kelly, I would love that. That's a wonderful idea. So anyway, fast forwarding to the Netflix show. That's one of the, of the 7 episodes in season 1 and season 2, they'll kind of show candid shots, including on the bus. And so anyway, if anybody watches the Netflix show, it's not, they don't say, oh, about the judging. It's like, are you the lady that rides the bus? And it's not football. I mean, some are football fans and Cowboy fans, but it comes out in 2025. In June, the Netflix show. Within 4 days, it's #1 in the world on Netflix.
So crazy.
So it's popular.
Yeah.
So about a month later, I'm at training camp in California. The Cowboys have training camp in Oxnard, California. It's about an hour and a half or 2 hours in traffic from Disneyland. I'm a big Disney person. So by myself on an off day from Cowboys, and we only get like 2 of them at training camp, I'm at Disneyland. And I'm snaking through the line at Toy Story Mania. There's this group of girls and women. You know how when you're in a line at a theme park, you kind of keep crossing the same people.
Yeah.
And they're kind of looking at me kind of funny. And it's obvious they are not Cowboys or football fans. And finally, they're like, lady on the cheerleader bus. And it's like, and yes, I'm proud of it. Happy to do it. I get recognized all the time, believe it or not, from the Netflix show. But 36 years of slaving away in sports journalism, and now I'm the lady on the bus.
And now you've arrived.
Yeah,
Now
but
you get
I
recognized.
forgot the original question. Oh, of how I became a cheer of that. But yes,
Yeah.
that's how I got involved with the cheerleaders. But anyway, I had been doing the questions for Kelly for a few years, and finally she's like, "Well, you should just be a judge." And I'm like, "Kelly, I don't know anything about dance." Yeah, but you write all the stories on the girls. You do the IMC so many events and do a lot of community events, MC that or Q&As, just a lot of things with the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders. And I'm on the sideline with them. And this is
Yeah.
even before Netflix and CMT. So I have the most communication with them than certainly any of the other judges, other than Kelly and Judy and Charlotte Jones, who owns the team. I'm actually the perfect person to be a judge because, well, not because of my dance knowledge, but because I know how they interact with people. I know how they are as ambassadors, and so that's why. And after all these years, I may not be able to tell you what they're doing on the dance floor, what the technical term is, but or on the sideline or blue star, middle of the field during thunderstruck, but I know exactly what it's supposed to look like and exactly what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah. No, you get a lot of face time with them, and I think it's important because your judgment of
Sure.
character based on what you do for the cheerleaders, I guess, is like really valued. And that's a really good way for you to kind of step into that role and
Mhm.
use your talents to, help this team out, which I think is the coolest thing ever.
It is
Uh,
so it was cool until this time last well little as we're talking now, it's April 2026, but late March or early April 2025, Meredith with the Dallas Cowboys, and she's Cowboys brand management. She works directly with Charlotte Jones,
mhm,
and they had been working on. And Charlotte is also the president of the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, in addition to chief brand officer of the Dallas Cowboys and all that she does with the team that her family owns. But Meredith came to me, and literally over 20, well, 20, nearly 30 years of writing for Dallas Cowboys program, the Star Magazine, which used to be the old Dallas Cowboys official weekly. And then, of course, the game day programs, which you could buy at the stadium on game day. Um, Literally hundreds of articles, not just about players or coaches or what happened on the sideline, team things. I would do articles on the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders and had done a lot of history on the
yeah,
DCC. And so Meredith comes to me and says, we've finalized a deal with SZN Publishing, which is a publishing company out of New York, for a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader book. And we have recommended to SZN that you write it and be the author of this book. And I'm thinking to myself, I can barely write a game day program article. I've never taken a journalism class, so I didn't know I was going to do this. This is all part of, springing from this part-time summer job as a promotions assistant. Anyway, I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy. And then Meredith's next words were, it's a coffee table book, so it'll be, but we still need the text, and it'll be quite a bit of writing, but we think you're the person for it. And I'm thinking, coffee table book, isn't that a lot of pictures? And I'm like, well, shoot, I, I think I could write to pictures. Well, I didn't know that it would be that much text in addition to,
the pictures.
like the captions for the photos, right?
Yeah.
It's really only about 9 or maybe 10,000 words. But oh, and by the way, the deadline is less than 3 months away. But anyway, honestly,
Talk
Giovanna,
about pressure makes diamonds.
well, thank you. Well, I don't know if it turned out as a diamond. The book did. I don't know about the text. The book is wonderful. America's Sweethearts, the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, Asaline.com, also Stanley Korshak, which is a fancy store in Dallas, and Neiman Marcus in Dallas, I think in Houston as well. Anyway, just a few places, but you buy it online. But so this book, there are two versions of the book. Now, the text and the the photos, everything on the inside is the same, but the packaging and like the pages and some of the textures and some of the really cool things that they did. SZN is very, very high end. This is
Mm,
a quality over quantity kind of thing. Okay. This isn't going to be a New York Times bestseller
fast
because
published,
it's,
yeah.
yeah, it's very niche, and the classic version, which is the not fancy one, is 140 or 120 $120,
Okay.
and the fancy packaged one is $1,400.
Okay. Big jump.
So big jump. But we had Charlotte Jones wrote the foreword, and then of course Kelly and Judy. Even though they didn't write the text, they provided the information. So we had some book signings, and so it's Charlotte, me as the author, Kelly and Judy. So they have the unveiling, right? The book launch party or release party. It's called a release party, and
Uh-huh.
whatever. I'm still learning the parlance of publishing. I have no idea. So it's at this Cowboys Club at the Star in Frisco, which is this really fancy restaurant. It's a members only thing. And so it's exclusive to get invited to this event. And I think they had 300 books to sell. And of course, they were gone like that. And we were supposed to sign from 5 to 7 p.m. And we were still signing at 7:40 because
So many
everyone was
people.
there. And I
Yeah.
misspelled my name several times in the book because it's like Giovanna, Giovanna, because you're trying to sign it to
Right.
the person and then you forget how to sign your own name. But that's because I'd never done this before. And then we had one at Stanley Korshak, and I think sold all but like 7 or 14 books or something.
Wow.
Then we were supposed to have a book signing event at Neiman Marcus the next week, and it was canceled because they didn't have enough product to sell. They didn't need us there
Ah.
to sign it because they had only a few books left. So, um, my point in all this is not, hey, look, you get to write a book. The point of all this, if anybody is an aspiring sports journalist, an aspiring anything, it's not what you've done in your past. It's being open to opportunities and
Mm.
willing to put yourself out there and do it. And when somebody asks you to do something, it's kind of like improv comedy. You don't explain, you just say yes and to keep it going forward. Now, I was not always that way, and even with the book, even though I was kind of a surprise attack and I'm talking to the publisher 5 minutes later, and all this thing, "Oh, step outside your comfort zone. That's how you grow." I found it incredibly stressful for those 3 months,
Can
just
only
because
imagine.
I wanted to do a good job. The stress was not coming up with 9 or 10,000 words. The stress was coming up with hundreds of thousands of words and 60 years worth of 65 years of history of the cheerleaders, and cramming it into that amount of space, and doing a good job for everyone, self pressure, as well as wanting to please the Cowboys cheerleaders, and all the alumni and staff, and Kelly and Judy, who I've come to love over the years. So
Mhm.
it was rewarding, and I'm proud of it. But everyone says it's not easy to, everyone says step out of your comfort zone, but it's not easy. And I'm glad I did it. But I learned a lot along the way, and um, you know, hopefully it's another 65 years before they come up with it, and then someone else can write it.
Right.
I'll sign the
Right.
first one.
I'm so glad you kind of gave that piece of advice and you touched on um, being open to opportunity, because that's kind of the theme of your career. And this kind of is a perfect segue into kind of what I want to talk about next is playing that role as a woman in sports and being a little bit of a trailblazer in terms of your career and kind of marking the path for other women. And you mentioned this earlier and you were like, well, that's a whole nother story. But going into the player locker rooms, that's been always historically a hot topic for women reporters. So talk to me about that specific moment and kind of maybe some adversity you faced, and then sum it up also kind of seeing the evolution of women being in sports and women having a place in broadcasting and reporting, especially in football.
So my first year with Cowboys Radio, the first year that KVIL took over broadcasting the games, not just in Dallas Fort Worth, but we at the time we had over 100 stations across the country on the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network. We would say coast to coast, border to border. Oh, plus Alaska and Hawaii. We were on two stations in Hawaii and on a
That's
station
awesome.
in Alaska. But anyway, but in 1990, we knew that we were going to start broadcasting the games in 1991. So we started doing a little bit of Cowboys coverage, even on our mom carpool music station. So I would go out to Valley Ranch and, or be at press conferences and get sound, right, that we would use for sportscasts and newscasts. And so back then, and then in 91, starting with the team, my early years with Dallas Cowboys, and we travel with the team to away games. So we're on the team plane, on the team buses. And if Charlotte were on the plane, back then the Joneses would ride usually with the team to and from the games and not on their private plane all the time sometimes. But if Charlotte were on the plane, then there would be three females on the plane. In addition to the flight attendants.
Mm.
And it was Roxanne Medina, who's been a videographer and producer and just a stalwart and everyone's favorite person with the Dallas Cowboys. So Roxanne and Roxanne wasn't a reporter though. She worked for the team, again, behind the scenes, producing the content for their TV and video and things like that. So, and in the locker room, and back then, this is before, I mean, you had ESPN, but you didn't have NFL Network. You didn't have podcasts or streaming. So you had the newspapers and you had the local TV stations. And then sometimes ESPN would be in town if it were a big game. But there was a female reporter, Susie Woodhams, for Channel 8. And usually out of about 20 reporters on a daily basis in the locker room at Valley Ranch or after a game, two of us were women.
Mm.
Susie left a few years later, and then we had like Jen Floyd Ingle, who was Fort Worth Star Telegram at the time. And then later, nowadays, Jane Slater and, but now on a daily basis, there are about 45 media people. I say media because probably about 8 of them are team Dallas Cowboys social media members. But and then there's so many news outlets now, right? So many more TV stations in Dallas Fort Worth, and then you've got NFL Network and ESPN. Anyway, long story short, about 45 reporters on a daily basis, and I'd say on a given day, 8 to 12. Sometimes you get assigned to different beats for them. That's why the number can vary. But yeah, I'd say up to like 12 females in the locker room. And that is very different. Now, here's the thing. My first day, remember, I grew up a Cowboys fan, standing outside in the parking lot of the old practice facility in Lake Highlands. It was Forest Lane and Abrams Road. There was no signage outside. Unless you lived in the neighborhood, you did not know that that was the home of the Dallas Cowboys. They were already America's team. They had won 2 Super Bowls already. I moved to Dallas in 5th grade. So around the time they had won their 2nd Super Bowl. But anyway, I'm thrilled at the chance to get to go to now Valley Ranch and cover the team. Now I have my little Marantz recorder, a cassette recorder, and a microphone. And it's an off-season mini camp. Now you only have one mini camp. Back then you had like 3 mini camps. And the format was 2-a-day practices. Well, same as now, the time, not that they have 2-a-day practices, but their lunch hour for the players and coaches is when the locker room is open to media. So you go in the locker room and hopefully some players are at their locker and you literally go stick a microphone in their face. And maybe ask a question, but I was a kid. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just holding a microphone thinking, oh God. Anyway, but back then, 2-a-day practices. So towards the end of this lunch hour, they have to go out for their second practice. So they're putting their pads and, undressing and putting their stuff back on. And I don't have any brothers. I was not married. I did not have a serious boyfriend at the time. Let's just say this is a potentially new visual experience for young Christie being in a men's locker room. We were much more innocent back then. Anyway,
That was a perfect way to describe
yeah,
that, by the way.
yeah. So, oh my, I'm looking at the floor, I'm looking at the ceiling, I'm looking everywhere but eye level, as you can imagine. And I turn just at the right or wrong time, depending on your perspective. And shall we say, standing in his full frontal glory was not, it's 1990, it was not Troy Aikman. It was not Gerald Johnston. It was not six-pack washboard abs of Michael Irvin. It was 320 pounds of offensive lineman Nate Newton. And that was my very first day covering the team. But after
Welcome
years
to
of
the
therapy, yeah, good to be with you today. No, that's not true. Well, the story is true, not the part about therapy, but yeah. So yeah, but it was very controversial at the time. A
yeah.
few in mid to late, that was early 90s, mid 90s. There are lots of stories, and like people getting women getting denied to go in the locker room. And then it's like, well, if women can go in a men's locker room, then men should be able to go in a women's locker room. And while that's egalitarian, the difference is and not just female reporters, even now, male reporters, there is no choice. You can choose to not go in, but you won't have the access to get the players. Now you can make a request to the PR department and have them bring someone to you if you're standing outside, or you can set up something, but it's going to be hard to get people. They're busy, and you would be very limited. And then after the game, that's pretty much, yes, there is a press conference after the game with the head coach and the quarterback. Maybe one other player if something special happens, like NFL setting, Emmett setting an NFL rushing record, things like that. But in general, you go in the locker room or stand right outside it to get something. By the way, if you're standing right outside the locker room, they've already talked inside the locker room and they are rushing to the bus
Right.
or to their
When I
car
get
to go
home.
home.
Yeah.
So all this stuff about, well, and it's like, you do it or you don't.
Mm.
And the guys, my colleagues, the male reporters, they don't want to be in the locker room either. But and the players don't want you in there because that's their space. But back then it was novel to have females in there. Now it's just par for the course. And the players, the young guy, they don't know any different,
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, it's different. I'm not dressing in mini skirts. I'm an old married lady. I've been married over 30 years now. It's not the same as when my first time in the locker room, where it's like, ooh, this is all new to me. But, you just act professionally.
Mm-hmm.
You ask good questions. And then some of these players got to be great friends with. Many of them are in media now. And I think my best advice, and this isn't just being a woman covering a man's sport like football, but don't act like you know what you don't know, and ask questions. Coaches especially, but even players, the good players, the smart players, you ask good questions. And I don't mean on air. I'm talking about off air, just trying to, learn.
Conversation. No. Yeah.
Like before Tony Romo was the starter, he'd just hang out in his locker room. He'd be reading a book, usually a sports biography, Johnny Unitas, Byron Nelson, whatever. Hey, Tony, on this play, this is the read, but what's the progression? And so I've had Jason Garrett. He was the third string and then second string quarterback behind Troy Aikman back in the 1990s. He did a pregame segment with us and would come into our Cowboys radio studio during his lunch hour on Wednesday. And I produced the segment, and he'd sit there for 30 minutes. We'd record for 5 minutes, and then we'd sit there and talk. And he would draw out the passing tree. He explained to me what a zone blitz is, literally drew it out. And so these and especially coaches, they will pour it into you because coaches are teachers, and of course you're riding on the plane with them, or you're 3 hours on the sideline before with them. I have access that other people don't. I understand that because working with a team, so that's a big part of it. But if you have any kind of intellectual curiosity about something or just want to learn more about it, it not only you enjoy it because you like football and you want to know what's going on and the game evolves, but you get tidbits. And so, I couldn't have told you when Jason Garrett is drawing out stuff for me in there, when we're just hanging out during his lunch break, that he's going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Well, sure. 15, 20 years later, you're going to get some nuggets that other people don't.
Yeah.
And, I interviewed Jerry Jones before the game for Cowboys Radio Network, 35 minutes before kickoff, and have probably interviewed him more than anybody else because that's 20 times a year, at least, preseason and regular season games. And, there's a trust and a rapport. He knows I'm not going to ask gotcha questions. So, but he'll answer any question that you ask. You just ask it in a reasonable way. And Giovanna, I know that you and I talked about this many months ago. May I share this example with
Yeah.
your viewers? Okay. So
Yeah, of course.
first year on the sidelines after 8 years producing was 1999. And run defense wasn't that great that year. In fact, like 2 out of 3 games, they had given up like over 200 yards rushing per game, which is kind of reminiscent of this
I was
past
going
season.
to say,
Anyway,
sounds familiar.
so the question is, why does your run defense suck? That's what people. Why does your run defense suck?
Right.
What are you going to do about it? So, but you don't, especially when you work for the radio network, you don't go to the owner and one of the most powerful people in sports, not just the NFL, Jerry, dude, your run defense sucks. What's up? You ask a reasonable question. You identify the issue and set it up so that they can answer it. You acknowledge that something exists and then allow them to address it. And Jerry sits in on the meetings on Monday. So he is in the room. And remember, he's general manager. So this is a question as the general manager and not just his owner. Jerry, have the deficiencies in the run defense been pinpointed? And if so, what's been done to address them? So it's the same question. Why does your run defense suck and what are you doing about it? But you're asking, you don't want to put your interview subject on the defensive, right?
Right.
Backpedal or have them, Matt. Here's the issue. What are you doing about it? What are the deficiencies? Have the deficiencies in the run defense been pinpointed and what's been done to address them? And that way, instead of on the back pedal, you set the ball on the tee and let them swing and hit it.
Yeah. And I feel like now in sports media, I mean, there's so many outlets and so many ways that people can listen to an individual, whether it's, a team organization outlet, whether it's their local, whether it's national, whether it's a person on TikTok that they follow that's just covering the Cowboys for fun. But there seems to be a little bit of a lack of disrespect when it comes to people reporting on these topics. And it's not intentional, but it's just negative.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's taking shots to get clicks or listeners. Sure.
100%.
Yeah. And unfortunately, often it turns personal. And it shouldn't be.
Yes.
Well, I say it shouldn't be, but in a way, and I'm borrowing this from my favorite rom-com, You've Got Mail, with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, where he owns a big book company and she owns the little bookstore for children around the corner. And she ends up shutting down because the big bookstore opens and everyone goes to buy books and she can't keep pace, And they end up falling in love, of course. But anyway, she says, you shut down my bookstore. And he says, it's just business. It wasn't personal. And she's like, it wasn't personal to you. It's personal to me. And isn't that the basis? Shouldn't it all be personal? And it's like, and And yeah, it's different when there's a podcaster or someone on some show, rant show, TV show with a lot of viewers that's half a country away, taking and it's not just taking shots, they're giving their opinion. It doesn't mean they're taking shots, but they're not in the building. They're
Mhm.
not riding the plane and sitting next to these people on the bus. They don't see, you think that as a fan that you're having a bad Sunday night and a bad start to your week when the Cowboys lose. Yeah, imagine being there.
Yeah.
And your
Imagine being
job
a
is
part
on
of
the
it.
your job is on the line, not just as a coach, as a player. And some people think that media, ooh, when the team's not doing well, oh, now you got to really get to talk. It's great for ratings. No, no. Believe me, you get more viewers and listeners the better the team does. And all of you Jerry Jones critics, and as a general manager, there are moves. Criticize the moves, and he'll criticize himself. And a lot of those criticisms are absolutely fair,
Mhm.
and he recognizes that. But there are people, Giovanna, that say Jerry only cares about the money and he makes only business decisions and he doesn't care about winning. Well, dudettes, whoever's saying this, y'all, if he only cares about the money, you know how much money it's worth now? Do you know how many more t-shirts, how many more product, how much more he could charge if the team were Super Bowl champions or in the NFC championship game every year? Are you crazy? Don't you listen to yourself? So, yeah, but I will acknowledge, to your point, that people around the country, they're not in the building and they're not friend. I'm not friends with all the players.
Mhm.
Do they know you? Do they know you? There are several that I'm friends with, and then along the way, like the Wittens of the world, the Aikman, the Daryl Johnsons, the Sean Lees, Marcus Spears,
Yeah.
Demarcus Ware, Emmett. His daughter interned for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders a few years back. I've known these kids since they were born. So yes, you have a different perspective and you have a relationship, not with all, but with some, and certainly with the coaches. So that's the plus. And do I get more nuggets than anybody else? Yes. Is that my job? Yes. Do I get it because I'm a great reporter? Not necessarily. It's because I have access that other people don't. And but we can, Brad Sham, Babe Laufenberg, and I on Cowboys Radio, we absolutely can give our opinion. We're not told by the Cowboys what to say or do. Oh, well, they can't say what they. We can, but we're also reasonable and we're professionals, and we can certainly share our opinion.
And that's
But you
huge.
can share your opinion in a respectful way,
Mhm.
right? You can, if a guy drops a pass, it's not because he's a bum. It's because people drop passes. He dropped a pass. Sometimes quarterbacks read it incorrectly. You can say that, and by the way, they'll acknowledge it. So just be respectful, and that's not sports reporting. That's life. Life
Yeah.
101.
Yeah. I'm it's so funny because throughout the show and throughout the making of the show and the individuals that I've interviewed, there's been an often theme and element of humanizing sports and humanizing the people that are part of
Mhm,
sports.
mhm.
And I think that comes with looking at these athletes as not bums when they drop the pass and as a human that unfortunately can't catch all of them. Yeah, and that's
Right,
just the reality of it.
right.
And so I'm
And,
glad you
and,
talked
and
about
the athletes know it. Here, um, sometimes I get asked to speak to, like schools or, especially, well, even career things for like sports journalism, whether
that.
it's
Mhm.
college but sometimes just high school or junior high kids. And I ask them, and it goes to the human part of being a player, even a coach. I ask them, what do you think the number one motivating thing for a Dallas Cowboy player is? Oh, I said, Super Bowl. Well, absolutely to win a Super Bowl. You bet. Very important. Money, yeah. Oh, yeah, you can make a lot of money if you stay in it long enough and are really good. The girls, oh, yeah, for sure. Access there too, maybe, if you want. But I'm like, no, the motivating thing, the one that why these guys work as hard as they do is fear of failure.
Hmm.
By fear of failure, it's not sure dropping a pass or missing the call and missing your block and the quarterback gets sacked and fumbles and they pick it up, right? It's fear of failure, um, not just of like losing the game because of something that you did. It's the fear of letting your teammate down.
Hmm.
That's the fear. And but the best players, the ones that want the ball in their hand when the game is on the line, instead of fear crippling you, like, oh, you're in right field. I hope that, but they don't hit the baseball to me. I don't want to drop it. Instead of being the one, don't hit it to me, hit it to me. I want to make the play. Um, Use the fear as motivation to do all the work during the week, all the extra film that you watch at night, coming in early, extra things with coaches, working more with your teammates, doing stuff in the off season that you don't have to do. And and as a broadcaster, I don't want to miss anything. So all the stuff that I do during the week to get ready for just a few minutes of airtime, you 99% of what I have, I don't use. I'm the sideline reporter. I get to talk. If a 15-second hit, that's a long time for me. I've got to get it in like that, usually about 8 to 10 seconds. And hopefully you don't hear from me, because if you hear from me during the game, it's usually an injury report. But I can also, other things. Babe calls me the IRS agent of the broadcast crew. You do not want to hear from me. I'm the only media person that wants less airtime. But with your
That's
pregame
funny.
hits, your postgame, just there's timeouts, dropping little nuggets in. Um, you don't you get opportunities, but it's because of all the extra things that you do in the off season. I'm already working on my game day notebook. I carry this giant notebook with me. This is last year's, but I've got all
Oh
sorts of
my
things. If it's
god.
if it's like really loud, we're in Kansas City or Seattle or Minnesota or something, and it hits like they're running the crowd meter, and it's like 118 decibels. Broke my wood. Oh yeah, that's a air raid siren. Hey guys, yeah, they're getting the penalty down here. It's obviously hard to communicate. 818 decibels is like standing next to a jackhammer. Or actually, it's like standing next to a jackhammer. Anyway, but the point of it is, so that's what I tell kids. So it's like, or students or aspiring sportscasters or aspiring anything. We're all 36 years in, I'm scared of missing something or messing up with Jerry or misspeaking, honest mistake. The players, they're scared of screwing up
Hmm.
because millions of people see it and they might lose their job, but mainly it's because they don't want to let the person next to them down, right? Their brothers, let the coaches down. Um, and so again, the difference is, yeah, you're scared of that test. Well, dude, study harder. I mean, it's motivation, right?
Right.
Don't go into a shell, just
Embrace it and get over
take
it.
that anxiety, that nervous energy and channel it. So anything in life, thinking of asking somebody out to prom. What did Wayne Gretzky say? You miss all the shots you don't
Don't
take.
take. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I love Wayne Gretzky. Okay, so obviously exciting time for the NFL because even though we're in off season, we have the NFL draft coming up and the
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys. There's been a lot of buzz, and I know maybe you can't reveal all what you know, those little nuggets that you know because of your access. But if you were in the war room with Jerry and all the coaches, what would you be targeting for the Cowboys in this draft? How are you addressing it? And who would you take as our first pick in the first round?
Well, obviously, defenses needs to be addressed more than the offensive side of the ball. Breaking news,
Yeah.
duh, we all know that. I mean, they've upgraded the secondary quite a bit, in free agency, with Thompson and Locke and Kobe Durant and, got Rashawn Gary but linebacker still needs a lot of work. You always need a pass rusher. How do you improve your secondary? A cornerback's best friend is a pass rush, right? So there's so many holes on the defense. So obviously at number 12, the Cowboys have 2 first round picks, number 12 and number 20. And I think that the very top prospects may not drop to 12. And I know there's a lot of speculation that Cleveland may want to trade down and Cowboys could maybe move up to number 6. And would you give 2 first round picks for number 6 and then maybe getting in the second round? The Giants trade with Cleveland, where they sent Dexter Lawrence, with Cincinnati, where they sent Dexter Lawrence to Cincinnati and got Cincinnati's first round pick, which is 10 overall. The fact that now they have number 5 and number 10, that may change some things. Are they gonna go defense, both of those, or will one of those be an offensive player? Heck, they could both be offense. We don't know what the Giants are going to do. But I would just say I don't know who they're going to, nobody knows who they're going to take. The Cowboys know who they would like to take, but they don't know who they're going to take because it depends on what happens with the picks before them, Captain Obvious. But I would like to see them make a move to trade up to assure that they get one of their, most times, even though there are 32 picks in the first round, most times teams only have 14, 16, 12, 11, 13 players with a true first round grade.
Yeah.
And not all of them are defense. Some of them are offense, right? For the Cowboys.
What do you feel like is too much to give up to trade up into the top 10?
See, I'm a quality over quantity kind of person. I know this, like, oh, you need to have so many holes to fill, trade down and amass picks. Dude, not just the Cowboys, but look at other teams, right? I mean, sometimes you do great. 4th round, you can get, a Dak Prescott or, man, you get a Jay Ratliff in the 7th round or, you can get Marion Barber, 4th round. There's some Jake Ferguson was 3rd round. You can really hit on day 3 of the draft or day 2 and 2nd round. Cowboys used to kind of take a risk in the 2nd round with like Sean Lee with an injury history out of college, Randy Gregory with some questions about, personal thing, trouble in college.
Yeah.
Off-field issues. Thank you.
Yeah.
But and I know they don't have a 2nd round pick, but you can't take those kinds of risks this year. And even Jerry has said, with these, they have to hit on these early picks have to not only be plug and play where they're contributing as starters first year, as a rookie,
Right.
But these guys to have the kind of capital with 12 and 20 or potentially moving up, these are going to have to be foundational players, cornerstone players like the Tyler Smith and like Tyler Booker. I mean, I know he's only played 1 year, but cornerstone type players. So I'm in favor of moving up and sacrificing some of that later capital if I am dead set, if it's a Sonny Styles or a Caleb Downs, now it's like, oh, will they go to 3 with Arizona? Is Arizona a good trade? I don't know about that. That's very rich.
That's ambitious. Yeah.
Well, and something, well, give up your first round pick next year. It's like this defense isn't going to be solved in 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to need draft capital next year as well, right? This is going to be the way the Cowboys have invested on offense, particularly offensive line. I mentioned Tyler Booker, Tyler Smith.
All the
Tyler Guyton was a first round pick.
Yeah.
The capital, not just the money invested, but the draft capital, you're probably going to be doing that for your defensive side of the ball.
For the next couple of years.
For the next couple of years. Now, that being said, what if one of the receivers falls down and they have him rated higher than anybody else? Or, oh my God, imagine the outcry in Cowboys Nation if they go with offensive tackle again. So Giovanna, are you a best player available kind of person? Because there are some people that say best player available no matter what. What if are you a best player available person? And if that best player, if you don't make a move to target someone and you're sitting at 12 and the best player available is an offensive player, do you take an offensive player?
Yeah, it's hard. I personally wouldn't. I would take the player that fits my team. Um,
Mhm.
well, it depends.
You fit your need. Mhm.
Yeah, if it's my if the best player available was still like if he was a top guy, really good, and we had someone that was in that role, but we could like maybe a running back, like I would
Yeah,
definitely
what if
take.
Jeremiah Love gets past Tennessee at 4?
I'm definitely taking Jarrett. Like if I'm definitely taking Jeremiah, but we do have to address that defense, and I'm definitely gonna take the players that can address those problems too. So
Mhm.
it's
What
it's
if
it's
it's a wide receiver? What if Carnell Tate or somebody or
oh, that's so
Fournette?
hard.
See, because here's the thing, Pickens is if they don't get a long-term deal negotiated with him, and it could happen any minute before, I think the deadline's July 15th. So
Mm-hmm.
it could get done, but he plays, Pickens hopefully plays this year, but you're not, just he'll hopefully get a long-term deal done. But if you don't, and if he signs that franchise deal and it's just for the 1 year, $27 million,
Yeah.
at the first round wide receiver, you have under control for 5 years, potentially. Well, you have him under control for 4 years with a fifth year option, and it would be less. The total amount of the contract would be less than the $27.2 million that Pickens is due this year. So you'd have Pickens this year on another prove it year for him. And if he leaves or you decide that you don't want the long-term investment, then you got a young guy.
Yeah.
So my point is, I'm not trying to obfuscate anything. I'm just saying
Decision.
that there are options and they're weighing all of them and they should. Now, Wednesday, tomorrow, as we tape this is Tuesday before the draft. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the Cowboys have their annual pre-draft press conference. So it's Jerry and Steven, and then head coach now is Brian Schottenheimer, of course. But believe me when I tell you that you could take the same press conference every year and just insert
Copy
names.
and
I mean,
paste.
it's the same. Well, we've got a plan. We're so excited, and we feel like we can rake some real improvements to think. Let me let my dog out of the room. There we go.
Doggy.
My dog is named Abby after the Abby Bear stuffed animal of the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, the little teddy bear with the thing. So I had a girl dog, and I wanted it to be kind of like a cowboy
Play
name.
homage.
And
Yeah.
so I was going to name her Texie for Texie Waterman, the original choreographer for the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders. But my husband's like, I don't like the name Texie. I think it's cute,
I
but
think it's cute too.
I let him. I'm like, okay, well, what about Abby Bear? And he's like, I could do Abby. I'm like, okay, so that's why my dog is named Abby. Anyway, um, but yes, they're doing their due diligence. I just think it's really exciting
Hmm.
that they're super big players in the draft this year and can really affect
Yeah.
everything moving forward. And I'm excited because I do think, or maybe it's wishful thinking, fingers crossed, that they do move up because, man, back in 91, my first year, Jerry, it was, swashbuckling Jerry making all these trades and oh, drafts were super exciting. So I'm ready for some excitement instead of the, drafting or late teens or early mid 20s, and like
Yeah.
trading back. Let's have some
You know,
excitement.
there's always one thing that I will always appreciate from Jerry Jones, and it was emphasized in that Netflix docu-series that came out recently,
Yes.
Cowboys and His Gambler or something like that.
Yeah, the Gambler and,
Gambler
his
and
yeah, America's Team, the Gambler and his Cowboys.
the other way around. There you go. But it seems that Jerry is a risk taker, and I will
Yeah,
always support people that take risk over playing it safe. Whether it works out for them in the end, whether they're going to get criticized and scrutinized, I will always appreciate the person that's willing to go outside of their box and take a risk. And I
yeah,
think that has been his, like, that kind of sums up the culmination of his career and how he kind of got with the Cowboys and how he bought the team, and then from all
Mhm.
the big trades back in the day, the blockbuster trades, and now
Mhm.
Micah.
Yeah, some of
So
them worked and some of them didn't, sent 2 first-round picks for Joey Galloway, traded for Roy Williams, the wide receiver from Detroit first. I mean, we've sacrificed, we're the Cowboys, and he have sacrificed so many first-round picks over the years, and it didn't work out, like with Joey Galloway's because it was an injury. But he got injured just a few games into his first year with the Cowboys. But, I mean, there've been some I mean, you look back and it's like, oh my gosh, it's just terrible. And it set the team back because they didn't get the production that they expected from those moves. And then they lost their first round picks, in subsequent years. But again, we quoted Wayne Gretzky, right? They got to shoot to score. And sometimes they took the shot and missed. But
yeah,
yeah, I just but sometimes people are disappointed, Cowboys Nation, and I get it. Believe me, I feel it. I hear it at the grocery store and on our podcast on Dallas Cowboys. Believe me, we know we're always reminded of what Cowboys Nation is thinking, and that's what's great because people are so passionate about it.
mhm,
It's that's what makes the job fun. People are like, oh, what do you think about this, or really about, and it's awesome. No one goes up to an insurance agent. With my bundling, it's not like Flow with Progressive, right? Oh, let's bundle our. Anyway, but
yes,
it's great because people are so passionate about it, and that's
yeah.
what makes it fun.
What
And
better
and
what better fan
they're
base?
very well informed,
Yeah.
very well informed, especially Cowboys fans. So I love that about them. But I remember there was a big draft day party, and it was at the stadium. Not when the overall draft was held at Cowboy Stadium. That was the year that Leighton Vander Esch was picked in the first round.
RB.
Anyway, Johnny Manziel was still available and the Cowboys were on the clock. Were we
Mhm.
picking 16 or 18 that year? Anyway, mid-teens, late teens. And oh my gosh, the Johnny was fallen in the draft. And now the Cowboys are on the clock and the entire floor of AT&T Stadium is filled with Cowboys fans and everyone's watching the screens. And they announce Zach Martin, offensive lineman, Notre Dame, and the
Oh,
fans are, oh, I mean, not just
that worked out
disappointed.
though.
Some of them were mad, and the party was over at that point. People left. Most fans left. Honestly, most fans left. And Zach Martin is one of the greatest players to ever
One
put
of
on
the
a
best
television.
yeah, he's one of
And
the
4
best
years from
linemen
now,
ever.
yeah, I really believe he's going to be first ballot Hall of Famer. So
Yeah.
I actually have an event with him Thursday. I'm doing a Q&A with him on draft night for some corporate guests. And Zach, he and his wife and their kid, he's one of the players I'm friends with these years later. But anyway, so sometimes what the immediate reaction, and I get why the reaction was, and as a Texas Aggie, I mean, I knew that it wasn't the right move to have Johnny as our, draft him as a first
Right.
round, but you're still, oh boy, as a reporter, oh my God, all the storylines are written. So yes, draft Johnny. It's like, no, don't draft Johnny.
No.
Reasonable person, but
Right.
I understand the disappointment, but the thing is, you can't judge it on draft
Mhm.
night, and you can't even judge it after a year or sometimes 2 years. Sometimes it takes longer. And then sometimes there's some, it's like, we took Taco instead of TJ Watt. What? You know?
7 years, but that is actually very interesting that was a scenario, and again, Zach Martin is, Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I always appreciate offensive line players, and as a Cowboys fan, I guess that's kind of ironic, but I always appreciate, what they do for football and how they play because we know the story. They're one of the most unrecognized people on the field,
Mhm.
but they have one of the hardest jobs.
Mhm.
And if the quarterback does bad, guess who's getting blamed? That
Mhm.
offensive line. So, so cool. Um, Hearing about your story, everything that has come with it and before and after it is remarkable, honestly. And I applaud you for what you've done for the Cowboys and for the radio and being a woman in sports and trailblazing. It is so cool. It is that time in the
Okay.
episode where we're doing our insider secret. Now, if you're new, this is your first time listening, our insider secret is basically a moment, a story, or a piece of advice that I ask our guests to share with us. Something I started back in season 1, and we brought it back in season 2. So, Christy, what is your insider secret?
It's about the shoes. So be careful how you pack for Cowboys road trips. So since we ride on the team plane, it's not super dressed up, but kind of, like business casual. Back then it was a little more business than business casual. But anyway, so my pairs of tennis shoes, it's kind of like three sets. I have the newer pair of the same tennis shoes, but like the new version, and then like the middle version, and then the worn out version that I used to mow the lawn. So anyway, so I've got my tennis shoes. I throw them in the bag, and I wear Cowboys gear and always dress warmly. Oh, I'll share that advice in a minute. Don't let me forget, Giovanna.
Okay.
Anyway, because this is practical. Both are practical, but one more important than the other. Anyway, so I throw my shoes in and all my stuff, and then I've got my gear. I'm ready to go. And we're playing in New York. This is so long ago. It was when Bill Parcells was head coach.
Okay.
And we didn't stay in cool place. We stayed down the street from East Rutherford, Giant Stadium, Hasbrook Heights at this little Hilton. And we didn't get in till, we get in about 6 o'clock on Saturday night. We had an early game. It was a noon game the next day, 1 o'clock Eastern. You have to be at the stadium about 3.5 hours, 4 hours before kickoff. Well, anyway, Saturday night, I'm like, oh yeah, let me lay out my clothes so that, they're not as wrinkly tomorrow. I pull out the left shoe and I pull out the other shoe, which is the left shoe. I had my new and my medium lefts, and then a pair of dress shoes. Not doing, believe me, I'm wearing the dress shoes. So not only am I dancing, but I literally have 2 left feet that day. And then you're self-conscious, so you're kind of like standing with one foot on the other. Not that anybody looked down and noticed, but so make sure, check your shoes. The other, what was the thing? Practical advice. So usually when you sign, like the kickers are usually really old or really young, kickers and punters. And I love it when we get veteran kickers or punters because they got to keep their feet warm. And ladies, our feet are always frozen. Guys, you know it too, because your wives and girlfriends, they put their cold feet on you at night. Our feet are always frozen. So I always ask, what do you do to keep your feet warm? And believe me, I've had every advice from put chili pepper in your socks. Bob Lilly taught me this, the original Mr. Cowboy, the first Hall of Famer in Ring of Honor member. The first year we were doing one of the talk shows on Cowboys radio, we were asking him about the ice bowl, right, where it was minus 30 wind chill there. And he says, well, I didn't suffer the same kind of frostbite that still affects my teammates to this day because I wrap my feet in cellophane and saran wrap,
So crazy.
keeps them dry. So for years I wrapped my feet in cellophane. Well, we had signed this kicker named Billy Cundiff, and he was from Iowa, grew up in a small town in Iowa, and played at Drake, so Iowa, cold. I'm like, Billy, what do you do to keep your feet warm? And he said, well, bread bags, of course. I'm like, bread bags? Like bread, like whole wheat, white,
Like Wonder Bread?
Yeah. He's like, yeah, bread bags. You like between your socks, like layers of socks, pull it up like a tube sock. Just pull it over and up your calf, and it keeps your feet warm. And Billy was a nice guy, and he's not going to like prank me, but I'm still thinking. I mean, I'm from Galveston, Texas, which is a tropical island near Houston. I'm from a tropical island, and then Dallas, and it gets cold, but we don't. So I just happened to work with a woman who was from the same small town as Billy, much older than him. But anyway, so I'm like, Lori, your boy Billy. I asked about keeping feet warm, and he says, bread bags. She's like, oh, yeah. Mom always kept the bread bag because when we go out and play or we go ice skating or we play hockey on the pond and yeah, you pull it up between your socks, and it keeps your feet warm. It's exactly what Billy said. So he wasn't lying to me. So anyway, like, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks later, we are at Giant Stadium. This is not the same game where I had two left shoes. Um, anyway,
Ironic though.
I had learned my lesson on that one. Anyway, so I got my snow boots on. It is sleet. It's horrible. It's sleeting, and they're already cleared the snow, but they're having to. Billy can't go out, and we can't go out on the field because the grounds crew, the tarp was stuck to the. They were trying to peel it off of the turf, fake turf. So anyway, literally leaning against the wall in the tunnel. There was just one tunnel at Giant Stadium. And Bill, I'm in front of Billy. He's leaning behind me. He's like, "Hey, Christy, you got your bread bags?" I'm like, and I pull up myself. I'm like, "I'm wearing them right now." So bread bags. And then the other piece of advice for cold. Thermacare heat patches, or you can get the generic, cheaper versions at, Walmart or CVS or Walgreens. But the patches, like grandpa has a sore back or grandma's got a neck ache, the heat patches, salon, it's kind of like that all over your body. I mean, and they make them, they kind of shape them to go the base of your neck or across your back. And then they have kind of little square ones. My own personal record, it was the Thursday night game. It was -7 wind chill at kickoff.
Oh my
On
gosh.
Thursday night football in Chicago at Soldier Field. I had 17 heat patches on my body, all over, on my arms, my back, my legs.
Bet you were warm though.
Yeah, and my arms were too skinny, so our radio engineer gaff taped them. And so I'm standing on the field with sweat pouring down. About to pass out from heat, and it's -7.
-7.
So this is not practical advice just for in case you find yourself on an NFL sideline. This is your kids have a soccer game or your grandkids are in band competition and it's cold, or
you're going to one of those games
college
yourself.
game, anything outdoors.
Yeah.
My husband's dragging me deer hunting and I'm sitting in a deer blind. Men too, don't be too proud. This will work for you as well. Heat patches.
Okay.
So what was the original question?
Your insider secret. But I have the bread
Yes, that's
bag
my
thing
insider secret.
is
Bread
so
bags,
cool.
bread bags, check your shoes, and heat patches.
There you go. You heard it here. You heard it right here. Well, Christy, I want to just say thank you for coming on and sharing your story and being so open about what you do. It's been awesome.
Hey, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for listening. If anybody is still watching this, thanks for listening. Sorry I droned on so long. I know you tuned in to see Giovanna and then I talked the whole time. So sorry about that. But that's what happens when you invite a radio person on, they think, "Oh,
We talk for a living,
Yeah, life's a microphone." So, and as the sideline reporter, I hardly get to talk. So I love this format.
There you
But
go.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for watching another amazing episode of Behind the Sports Show. Make sure you can find us and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Behind the Sports Show. There I post awesome content. And in the off season, I'm kind of keeping some content close to our chest so we can post and keep engaging when we go into our off-season period. So make sure you follow us on there. You can also follow your girl at Giovanna Scroggins on Instagram and TikTok as well. Thank you for always watching these episodes. If you do listening, the guests I have on really take time out of their careers and their busy schedules to come on and tell their stories so that we can be inspired and that we can be better people and that we can continue elevating ourselves. So I really appreciate y'all that do listen. And I appreciate all of our guests. Thank you to Christy for coming on this episode and sharing her story. She's a great friend of mine now. And it's just awesome that I get to know a person like that. As always, keep supporting, keep celebrating, and keep being curious about what happens behind the sport.